Stephan should go. He's the new shop foreman. He should
Okay,
start with.
so
Yep.
what have you got this week for us, Stefan?
So I mean, we right now we have the up and coming apprentices basically taking on just more difficult work. They're getting into brakes, they're getting into a bit of gravy, they're getting into services. Now they're still straight time, whereas the rest of the shop is flat rate, and the senior guys are now essentially getting upset, and rightfully so, that their gravy's getting taken by these younger guys, less experienced, less paid, and they're getting a share of the good work. And it's very difficult to prevent the typical chirping, if you will, from the seniors to the newer guys. Something we've all experienced in our lifetime, I'm sure. And now we kind of have a switch. We have a change of the guard, if you will. And the new generation isn't going to put up with it. We've seen it. It's definitely a new breed of kids that are born after, let's say, 95 or even into the 2000s, that they're not going to take it from the old guys in a positive manner. They're going to shut down. They're going to take it as intimidation or bullying, and they're not going to be able to focus when you have guys just giving their 2 cents that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And as a result, I have to now put my foot down with senior guys, some of which are older than me, and I'm not really a fan of that, because I shouldn't have to do that, and I'm not sure how I'm going to navigate it in a positive aspect, instead of saying to someone, shut your mouth and do your job, because that doesn't really come across positive. So I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that.
It's what needs to happen, but it doesn't work too damn well.
No. I don't want to rule by intimidation, so I try to keep my voice low and calm, but I find it really doesn't get through. Everyone seems to react to yelling a lot more positively, which I really don't see being a good thing to do for too much longer, because I just don't want to do that. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to navigate your senior guys and your up and comers, how to navigate the two different levels of experience and maturity in most cases.
All right. So fundamentally, how to navigate, and this is a great shop foreman question, how to navigate talking conflict between the folks who are just entering into the shop, getting their feet wet, doing some not necessarily hard stuff, but starting to go from just changing oil to doing some real work. Now it's gravy work, but doing some real work, and then how it reflects against the senior techs. Okay, cool. How to navigate that conflict. Richard, this is directly something that you've been dealing with for a lot longer than Stephan's been doing. I want to hear from you first. And Marshall, you're going to have a completely different view on this because you're not in the shop, you're in the field. So you're going to have to you've been dealing with apprentices who just start with you versus the apprentices who've been with you for months and months and months, or potentially a year plus. So that's going to be a completely different answer that both Richard and I are going to kind of give. So Richard, I want to hear from you first, and then I definitely want to hear from Marshall and see how different that is.
So the unfortunate part is some technicians you still got to treat like they're 20, right? It doesn't matter if they're older than you, if they have more experience than you, they will get their backs up because they feel that they're being, like Stephan said, that their gravy's being taken away. They all started somewhere, right? Everybody started somewhere. A lot of the times you just have to remind them of that. What I've done in the past is, if my apprentices are coming over, if they're picking like their preferred journeyman to go to ask for advice or anything like that, what I will do then is I'll turn around and I'll pay the journeyman the time for that job, right? If it's a huge job, if they're like a third year and they're into an engine or something like that, a lot of the times they're not going to go to a journeyman and ask for help. They're going to come to the shop foreman or somebody that is like a team lead or anything like that. If you have team leads, are going to come to somebody like that, where they're compensated on a scale that if their workflow is interrupted, they're compensated for it. But if they're doing like breaks and stuff like that, and they're doing a coolant flush and they go and they're continually, because the apprentices they'll go and seek out in the shop who they can talk to, right? They'll go and they'll mesh well with, they'll pick who they mesh well with, right? Um, and at the end of the day, you just gotta, you know, you gotta compensate your journeyman for it, your flat rate guys. If they're constantly getting pulled over, then maybe it's time to talk to that apprentice and find out what his skill set is, why he's not comfortable. Start building up the confidence in that apprentice, because he's going to have to work on his own when he gets to a certain point, right? You can bounce stuff off your baymates, but you got to be able to pull that trigger, make that decision, especially when you're doing like a heavy diagnosis as a journeyman, right? There's sometimes you get into stuff nobody's ever been into it before, and you're going like, okay, SI says this, but my readings are weird, so I got to make a decision, right? So this gives you an opportunity to build up the confidence of your apprentice by like empowering them to do the jobs. And if they're going to a journeyman to ask for advice, then you can turn around and compensate that journeyman. Yes, you can. It'll get absorbed with um, unapplied time and all that other stuff, but that's just the name of the game at this point. You want to take care of the people in your shop, right? And if you have an apprentice that's up and coming, you want to take care of them and grow them. On the other hand, if you have journeymen that are constantly just pissing and moaning that the apprentices are, they're getting all the gravy work, or they see them go into the parts and come out and they're pushing pads and rotors, and you hear the offshoot of like, oh, look who's getting all the gravy. It's time to pull that journeyman aside and have an actual one-on-one chat with them. And this is the part that being shop foreman sucks. You have to build that wall. You got to build a line between friendship, baymates, and management, right? You're not quite, this is the thing, as a shop foreman, you're not, it all depends like how active you are. You're not quite management, but you're no longer like looked at as a tech, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the trenches, if you're working shop foreman, your technicians will never look at you the same being a working shop foreman, because they know that you still got to report to your service manager. You still have a line to toe with them, right? Like, so this is where you as a shop foreman have to start building basically a little bit of a wall with the style of relationship that you have with your technicians. It's not that you can't go out and show appreciation and all this other stuff, but you got to kind of keep them at a distance, right? So that way, then when it comes time to write them up, give them shit, pull them aside and be like, hey, you're being a fuckhead and you need to smarten up. Like, that's, they don't get all offended. They don't get all butthurt and be like, oh, you're supposed to be my friend. And it's like, no, we're at work. I'm supposed to be the one who's setting the tone of the shop here. You need to start pulling your pants up and acting like a big boy, not, whining because, the second you're over in the corner is struggling doing breaks. You have no idea what, they've never done them before. They're struggling doing a set of breaks, and you're turn around and give them a hard time. That just destroys your apprentice's confidence. And we've all been there as journeymen. Now we've all been in that situation where you're an apprentice, you're not too sure what you're doing, and you want to look at the confidence. So yeah, I would say you got to build that wall a little bit. You got to tune up your journeyman to stop being such pains in the ass when it comes to their apprentices. But then you got to build your apprentices up, because like you said, they're not going to stand for it. They're going to turn around and disappear, and you'll never see them again. That's what the apprentices do. They don't scream, they don't kick, they quiet. I hate the term quiet quitting. I hate that, but they will turn around and leave. You'll never see them again.
Yeah, agreed. Marshall, I'm interested to hear your take on this, because it's going to be so different from I think it's going to be incredibly different from Stephan, Richard, and I. It's going to be. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty similar to the way Richard does things. Like, because yeah, I train apprentices, right? But my apprentices, on top of that, they still, when we come back from the field, right, they still interact with the shop technicians. we all see each other's numbers and our sales and productivity and efficiency. It's posted where everyone can view it. So I have 6-month apprentices that by the time they get to 6 months, they are usually out producing the technicians in the shop, even the senior ones. So I build them up in a way that they're given all the tools to be successful. But the banter that I get from, or that my apprentices get from the senior technicians in the shop is, they kind of just talk crap to them and yada yada because of their sales. And I don't know if they're jealous or what the deal is. But what I run into is something similar where I guess you have to prepare your apprentice for some of that cutting up, because there is a line. So, you got to teach your apprentice in a way like, hey, this is normal banter. Okay. This is not normal banter, and this isn't going to be allowed. You don't put people down. We don't, we can cut up a little bit, but if I hear another technician crossing that line, I'll be the first one to step right in, and that usually cuts it off. If I'm like, hey, that's not appropriate. We don't talk to each other like that, and you will not talk to one of my apprentices like that, especially not around me. We don't do that, because there is some banter where they're putting each other down or talking smack on somebody. It's like, no, dude, you're not going to do that around me. And usually that stops it. You never hear anything about them. If anything, it redirects them to me, and they leave the apprentices alone, and then they start trying to pick on me or talk on me. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me at all, because I've been number one in the shop for a year straight. So you talk all the smack you want, homie. Let's show me the numbers.
Bring it. And
bring it, dude.
I think that's one of the key ingredients here, irrespective of all the small pieces. Like Richard had a whole bunch of great pieces in there, and so did you, Marshall. And it comes down to a couple of things. If you want to talk smack, bring the papers. You want to talk some smack, bring the papers. Let's
let your numbers do the talking, homie.
Let your work show what you can do. That's a big one. Two, Marshall, you're running interference. As a person leading a team, you're running interference so that they can be successful as a team. Now you've got a kind of interesting mix in there where you've got a couple of teams in there. Now there are shops out there that are running multiple teams in the shop and so on and so forth. This is a great way. Again, it's running past interference, making sure that the team can be as successful as possible, making sure that they feel safe, comfortable, the ability to just get in and work. And as we know, it's maybe a little bit different in shops that have women in it or women only shop, because I know there's a whole bunch of those. We cut up hard, way harder when we're comfortable and we can trust those around us. Like we cut up way harder, but it's not that insidious, underhanded, backstabbing bullshit. It's that like, hey Fred, you old bald-headed bastard, how you doing? That kind of stuff. Just, that's normal. That's okay, but the young folks don't necessarily know where that line is. And as shop foremen, service managers, team leads, we have to make sure that that line is as clear as we can make it, so that not just the young folks, but the guys and girls that have been around a hot minute that may have forgotten where that line is. Maybe they've become bitter, maybe they're resentful, whatever the case may be. They have to understand where that line is. And maybe, Stephan, that's where your team may not have had a clearly defined line with that. May partly be in there. Two, maybe this is, and we're gonna be literal here. This is on you a lot. Like this is a big portion. This is on your shoulders to stand up, be past interference for the younger techs, because they need to learn. And like Richard said, yes, they're doing gravy, but until they've done it 6 or 7 times on each model in each time, and to be able to feel comfortable doing those things, yes, again, it's gravy, but it's still a job they've never done, right? Until they've done it 6 times anyway, they're not going to be really making money on it. They're going to be scared of doing it. They're going to be thinking, like in the back of the head, the 19-year-old version of me is going, what if I leave a wheel loose? What if I leave a bolt loose?
Yeah.
What if I don't torque this properly? What if I don't put it on properly? What if I don't torque it in the right sequence and they come back squealing or warped or whatever? What if I don't test drive it properly and don't bed them in properly? Like that kind of anxiety stuff as a young mechanic, they don't necessarily know where the threshold of confidence, competence, and so forth sits at, and you need to instill in them that level of confidence in their own workmanship. If the rest of the team isn't on board with making sure that they have the confidence and competence, that shit goes downhill real fast, and it enters the whole shop, because if part of the shop or a big portion of the shop doesn't have any confidence or competence, the rest of the shop is just not gonna fucking care. Their QC goes out the door. It's like, oh, they're getting away with all that shit, all those comebacks. I don't give a shit, right? So drawing that line, you're gonna have to draw. There's a couple other pieces in here, and try and keep this short. But one of the things that, and we brought labor mix up in the past, and I'll bring it up again, have them not necessarily journal, but when you bring them their reports for the week, the day of the week, I don't remember whether you bring them up daily reports or weekly reports or monthly reports or whatever on their hours, but have them look at their CP mix, their CP warranty labor mix, CP warranty internal labor mix, and look what it is for the month, not for the day, not for the week, but for the month. So at the end of the month, the average person works 160 hours, right? So if they've got 160 hours billed, 160 hours work, they're 100% productive. Awesome. But look at the mix. If they've got 120 of those 160 hours at CP, that means a 75-25 CP warranty labor mix. That's not a great mix, but it's a good mix. That's your minimum, in my opinion. If they're at 90% CP warranty and they're still bitching, but they're only 100% productive, that's on them for not being more productive. That's not on them for not learning new ways to be more productive with their time. 90% CP and they're still bitching, that's on them. We've had this discussion. Same thing goes with the apprentice. Teach them what that means. If they're 10%, 20% CP and the rest of it's warranty because they're learning, or maintenance, however you want to break it down to make them understand, so they understand, hey, yes, they're getting gravy, but look, they worked 80 hours in 2 weeks. And yes, they did lots of breaks, but guess what? They only made 40 hours in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? They got to learn. So the old folks, and I say old folks, but anybody that's been in the trade for 10 plus years should know better. Teach them to understand that, yes, they might see gravy going to the young folks, but they're learning, and they may not be making 100 hours every 2 weeks because they're doing all of the gravy. They got to learn somewhere. So there's a little bit of data in there that you can share. There's a little bit of emotional support you can do in there. And I think the primary leadership, in my opinion, between Marshall and Richard and myself is, and much like was in the group chat from anybody at SDL listening, we don't negotiate with terrorists. So folks that have no real interest in providing for the team, like there's no I in team, but there's two in micromanaging. That's what effect they're trying to do. They're trying to micromanage up into you. So tell them to
do you have any of your journeymen that are friendly to the apprentices that kind of help them out and stuff?
Oh yeah, there's definitely guys that are stepping up now and really taking a liking to a couple of the guys that we have, and techs always want a hand, even if it's just pulling a car in and out. But it's like, hey, I'll do the front brakes, you do the rears. So there really is a great core team. It's one or two bad apples that just having a bad day or maybe say the wrong thing, and I know how it goes. When I started at the same place, I was fairly inexperienced. I was only licensed for a year, and man, I had nicknames for every type of job that I would do, and I wasn't particularly good at very much. And then over time I got better, and it got to a point where I wasn't concerned with who was walking in the door next because the work spoke for itself. I'm definitely not the best guy in my shop. I think there's guys that are definitely better at certain key components, but I am one of the more experienced, and at my age, I'm still actually one of the youngest, minus the apprentices that we do have. So it's just been a little bit difficult to navigate kind of the hierarchy. So it's really one or two guys that kind of need to be corrected, and because they're older than me and I've known them for a long time, there's definitely a friendship there that's tough to really be seen as an authoritative figure. And I
I
just
think
kind of
that's where Richard's statement really comes in.
yeah,
As much as you might be friends, you're at work. And I think Richard shared the story a couple of episodes, actually several episodes ago, where he had friendship and that friendship turned disrespectful very quickly. You got to remember that you're at work. As friendly, you're not friends at work. You're in, whether you have, folks that are listening, if you're a shop foreman or trying to be a shop foreman, whether you have authority or autonomy is irrelevant. If you are a shop foreman, you have a degree of autonomy and authority to try and lead the team. That requires a certain amount of emotional distance. Like, you can be friendly, not friends. You can be kind, don't be nice, right? The whole team needs to win, not just one person. So if you're getting challenge from one person or maybe two people that, yeah, they may be having a bad day, yeah, maybe they're having issues at home, yeah, maybe whatever, they still need to be respectful at work. They still need to respect the position, whether they don't respect you or not, right? That's the challenge. They cannot respect you. They must respect the position. The caveat to that is, if you aren't being respectful in the position, that throws it right out the door. So you need to be very self-reflective on days that are challenging in that manner, so that, it's like, okay, these are the things that I did, these are the things that I said, these are the situations that I'm trying to curb or direct in a different way. And this is your opportunity. It's like, hey, these are the things, service manager, your fixed ops going, hey, these are the things going on in the shop. This is the way I think I want to take it. Do you have any input? Do you have any, whatever to try and get some feedback top down, so that you have a slightly more confident approach? Because if you just go in guns blazing, the likelihood that you're out the door soon is high. But if you get engagement from high with input saying, hey, these are the things that happened, this is what I've done so far, it's not going the way I'd like, these are the things I'd like to try, do I have your support? And then you have a little bit more ammunition yourself. Either way, great question. Hopefully there's a lot of folks out there that can take some good stuff away from that. That's awesome.